All right, we're on. Hello and welcome to the Get Out of Your Funk show. I'm your host, Sharla Mandere, and I have a really awesome guest with me today. I'm really excited to talk to Alicia Trautwein, and she is an autism parenting coach. And we thought it was really relevant to talk right now. I'm so excited to talk with you because you have 4 kids,
Yeah.
and your youngest 3 are autistic.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is a lot in and of itself, I think, but especially right now with being quarantined, and this is where we're at. I don't know when you're watching this video down the road, but as we're filming this, coronavirus is happening and we're all in shelter in place. And so I'd love to chat with you about how you handle that with special needs children in the house. And is it different than your day-to-day? So do you want to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I have 3 autistic children. I run the website, themomkind.com, where we share tons of different parenting tips for kids with and without special needs. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, a child's a child no matter what their needs are. And so I've been doing that now for about 3 years, just because we had such an interesting journey of how our autism diagnosis came about with our children. So we had 1 very early diagnosis and 2 very late diagnoses. And we realized very quickly that there wasn't a lot of information about girls on the spectrum at that time. So we started sharing our story and just advice and things over time. And I wound up going into coaching and doing life coaching. And then I wound up just kind of taking it all in and was like, yeah, this is where I need to be, is autism parenting and coaching. And just, that's kind of where I've been at this point. And yeah, so like I said, we have 4 kids. We range from ages 5, 12, 13, and 17. So every step in the journey, which makes it so much fun. But yeah, and so it's been kind of crazy around here, I fully admit that. Even as a coach, I still have my own life that still sometimes doesn't go as planned.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when we're all 6 in the same house, locked together all the time, 24/7. Things change a little bit.
Yep. And so just real quickly to help explain to people that maybe don't have special needs kids, how early was your early diagnosis? And when you said a late diagnosis, like what ages is that?
So our early diagnosis with our son, we noticed, and he is our youngest, he is our 5-year-old.
Okay.
And I noticed from birth that he was having some issues. We saw right away, no eye contact, and he was breastfed, so that should tell you something there. And we didn't have a lot of symptoms. Up until 18 months, he had some red flags, but not enough to even be tested. At 19 months, he had lost all words.
Oh.
And so he did gain back his speech over the years. But so in that process, by 23 months, he had an autism diagnosis, which is, right where the ideal diagnosis is.
Okay.
For girls, they were 8 and 11. And the one that's now 12 was 8. And she was diagnosed 6 weeks later than our son. So 6 weeks after he was diagnosed, she was diagnosed by a different doctor.
Oh, but she was like 6 years older.
Right. Significantly older. And they had both. And then same with my, the oldest, she was 11 by the time she received hers, because her 2 younger siblings had received a diagnosis. The doctor, one of the other children's doctors, kind of put it together. It's like, I think this might be something here, and looked at it. But they had been seeing doctors since they were 2 and 3 years old. And they had never pinpointed it because there was such a difference between girls and boys when on the spectrum.
So you kind of went in reverse order of like what we would consider, I guess, to be a diagnosis of your youngest, then your middle, then your older one being diagnosed.
Exactly. And then
the older one would be first, and then.
Yeah. And for the funny part of it all, during that process, I received my diagnosis that my mom was never able to receive, that I received at 33.
Oh my goodness.
Which is extremely late. And it was literally because the one that's now 13's doctor was like, so have you ever been tested for autism? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, you might want to consider that if you're saying that all of the things that, they're doing is stuff you did as a child.
Oh, wow.
And so there was just such a difference there that it just, we've been, like you said, completely opposite of what you would think when it comes to when everybody should be diagnosed and the order,
Yeah.
complete difference. So,
My goodness. And so what changes after you get a diagnosis, especially with the older ones?
yeah.
Was it helpful to have the diagnosis, and were you able to then get the tools and resources for them,
Yeah.
in your stress level and all the things once you
I
know,
don't
is it
think
like
stress level ever changed too much, but but yeah, no, it absolutely is helpful. I mean, obviously for our youngest, the early intervention is key. You'll hear that all the time, whether in the special needs community or not. You see that, you'll see commercials and stuff even telling you early intervention is key. It is. But even at older ages, the diagnosis, it gives an explanation
Mhm.
that it's not just, oh, you're strange, you're shy. It's an actual, like, this is why. It also opened the door for different therapies. While it wasn't the early interventions, our girls do horse therapy, which is amazing. I'm so jealous of, to be completely honest. I love it. Uh,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so they've been, they've had different things, doors open up for them. Our youngest daughter, so the middle of the three with the diagnosis, she actually was able to get an IEP at school, change the learning environment for her, and that made drastic difference because even though she was a late diagnosis, she was still only 8 when she got diagnosed.
Hmm.
So she was able to get a lot of early interventions when it comes to school, which was definitely a huge benefit for her.
Yeah, for sure. And then when we were talking kind of beforehand, you mentioned there's a grief process
Oh,
in this.
absolutely.
And that would make so much sense to me, of like, I never thought about, because we think about grief as just losing someone or something, but your children obviously are still here. So
Yeah.
explain that process and what that's like once you get the diagnosis, kind of
Yeah.
what goes through your head as a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us it was different because I hit different cycles with each child. By the time we got that last diagnosis, it was really of an acceptance stage. But, even with my son in the process, you start the process and every day you back and forth wonder, is it really autism? Is it, oh, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe that's normal. Maybe, he's just peculiar about this or he has these needs. And there's this cycle of denial that happens. And so all parents go through some form of the grief cycle, whether it's denial, it's pure what you think of with grief. So the sadness, the loss, because it's not that you're losing your child, but you do have an image. I mean, all moms, we think of when we're pregnant, we think of what our kids are going to grow up to be, whether it's a president or a soccer player, or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
a lot of times you create this image in your brain of what this child is. And when you receive that diagnosis, that image is gone, or what you perceive of that image is gone. And
Right.
so you do have to really get through that grief cycle of understanding that that's okay to be sad. Even though that didn't exist, it still was a part of your mind, what you were thinking. And then also, the denial. Some people are angry. You get very you'll have parents where one parent's, one part of the grief cycle and the other parent's really angry. And, they'll deny the diagnosis or say the doctor's wrong or say that the doctor's a kook or whatever. And, and that actually is probably the most dangerous part of the cycle of grief. Because if both parents are in that, or one parent's a little bit stronger willed on that, it can delay children getting the actual help they need.
Mm.
It's okay to be angry. It's absolutely okay to be angry, but it's learning not to stay in that stage for long. And honestly, the whole grief cycle, it's something that's not talked about, which is, I think, very huge. I did not even understand it was the cycle I had went through until much later on when I was past it, when I was speaking to Dr. Rick Solomon of the Play Project, which is an autism therapy, and he's the one that created that. And I was talking to him, and he says to me about this. I'm like, whoa, you're right. This is exactly what I went through. And no one ever told me about this. And so my big thing is getting parents to understand that this is a part of the cycle. This is part of the process of getting a diagnosis, whether it's autism or any other, medical diagnosis. I mean, most parents go through it in one degree or another.
Right. And that's, it's there's a in psychology, the stages of grief, there's 5,
Mhm.
right? Denial,
Yep.
anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And
Right.
so it makes total sense to me that you would have to go through those, or not that you would have to, but that you do go through
Right.
those in terms of any kind of, like you said, any kind of medical diagnosis, anything that takes that hope and dream that you have and changes it. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it's gone, but it can certainly change things. And then you get to have different hopes and dreams, new hopes and dreams, new goals and goals. So when you're like working with parents and you help them get through these
Yeah.
stages and to get to acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And then get to these new goals and new dreams and and get their kids, right, the help. Because yeah, I think as you're going through it, I can see how it might hinder, especially if you're in denial,
Yeah.
but then it hinders maybe the resources and the help that your kid can get.
Exactly.
And I think it's a beautiful thing to walk through. It still is an important piece of moving forward, is going through those cycles of grief.
Yeah.
You have to go through them in order to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
And so right now, like when we're all kind of quarantined in, like what are your steps for, and this can be for parents in general, you don't have to have
Yeah.
special needs kids at home. This is hard for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of us are thrust into homeschooling when we were like, oh man, I have no idea this, middle school math, it's insane. And so, what can we do to, I feel like I've been going through the grief stages in quarantine.
Yeah.
Like there were certain things that were supposed to happen this week in our school, or activities that my kids had been working towards, that now are postponed or just plain not happening, birthday parties that were canceled and whatever. And there's that, first there was a denial, and then maybe you get a little bit angry that you're stuck at home, and then maybe it's like, okay, if we stay home for a few days we'll be able to go out. That's the bargaining, right?
Right.
And then we're starting to get depressed, we're starting to get some cabin fever, people are getting maybe really anxious, and now I think people are starting to accept, like, oh, this is actually happening, right?
Right.
So I feel like we've even been going through those grief stages
Oh yeah,
lately, which is
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, and very thankful for teachers right now, right?
Well, and I mean, we've been saying for years that teachers need raises. Maybe
Oh,
now, hopefully
maybe they'll get it after this.
because everyone's got to homeschool. So and the teachers are working really hard. Like we see
Yeah.
teachers sending videos of them reading out loud from home, and they're not just sitting home going, I'm on vacation. They're actively trying to get our kids support and help. And so, have you noticed, how do you do that with special needs kids at home?
Yeah.
How do
So
you do
special needs kids, and really all kids in general, I know you and I talked about before, but routine is key. It's one of the things of, we all have a routine, we just might not realize it. So, for a lot of the people, it's, we go to work at a certain time. We do certain things while we're at work. We come home, we eat dinner at a certain time. We have bedtimes. We have these routines, and we all look forward to those routines. And special needs children, especially, routines are very much a have to, because they need to know what's happening when.
Mm,
There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of, worry about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen on a routine basis, for just, a normal life when you're not having quarantine.
right.
So when you have a situation where you're all at home, yeah, there's going to be a time period where we're all like, okay, we're just going to Netflix and chill. We're going to sit back. We're going to try to let things ride. Yeah, y'all go eat in the pantry. Go figure out what you want. Week goes by, we're all bloated, we're all cabin fever. You come to a point where you're like, okay, something's got to change. What do we got to do?
Yeah.
And so routine has been the big thing. This doesn't always mean it's a set routine for everybody. It might be a loose routine. It might be like, these are the times that we do, our schoolwork. We do it during this time. We do make sure we go to bed and wake up at the same time. Things like that. Or it can be a very regimen. For our household, it has to be very regimen with special needs children. So we do have set, this is when we're waking up. This is, our school's actually been doing free lunches for the entire district with breakfast and lunch. So
awesome.
We all jump in the truck, and they, nobody gets out. It's a drive-through thing. They just want to make sure how many people are there. we drive up, and that's kind of our wake up process. I'm like, y'all don't have to get dressed, but you have to get in the truck, and we go get lunch. But then it also makes it where we're not fighting for, who gets what when. It's this is what they've been so nice to give us. We're going to take this and we're going to eat this, and that's it. It also made milk so much easier because they give each kid a milk for breakfast and a milk for lunch, which right now has been not possible in the stores.
Yeah.
Skim milk if you're lucky. So yeah, and so we have set routines. We do schoolwork at certain times, but then we do have certain free times where it's like, this is your free time. You get to choose what you want to do. You can't obviously go hang out with your friends, but they do FaceTime and Roblox at the same time, and they put their little phone up against the computer, and they all see each other, and then they're playing the game, and so they feel like they have some sense of normalcy. And it gets funny, I'm not gonna lie, listening to middle schoolers talk while playing video games. It's interesting to say the least. But yeah, and so having the routine has been really big, and then having things that we say, this is what we're gonna do as a family. Whether it's game night, and that doesn't have to be that you have to do games every night, because believe me, none of us can handle that. But like, we're gonna do game nights. If you're able to go hiking somewhere, if your things aren't shut down yet, take advantage of that. Just keep your social distance. But
or walk around the block, or
right, walk around the block.
Yeah.
Our dogs have been walked like 3 times a day lately. They are loving it. I don't know what they're gonna do when the kids go back to school.
Best thing ever. Yeah.
Right, the animals are like, what? They love me. They're petting me. They're taking me out on walks multiple times a day. Yeah, it's been great. So yeah, and exercise in general is great no matter what. So yeah, just keeping a routine, and also the other thing is explaining things to them at their level.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing right now is we don't know what's going on, so it gets hard to explain to the children. But then we forget, like, they do need to know what's going on. Why can't you have your favorite candy? Well, the store's out of it. Well, why is the store out of it? Because when has any big store ever been out of candy or milk or whatever? And so trying to explain to them at their levels.
Or the play date with a friend, where on the spring break, they would normally have, like, next week starts our spring break.
Yeah.
So, they would normally have sleepovers with friends, and they would have go hang out for a couple of hours at so-and-so's house, or we would have their friend over, and can't do that right now.
Yeah, we had everybody's spring breaks have been canceled. Like, everybody had some plan, no matter what your plan was, whether it was
Travel,
staying at home or sleeping over. Or,
why is Disneyland closed, Mom?
Right, why is the beach closed?
Yeah.
And it's hard, so we forget sometimes that they need to understand these things too.
Mm-hmm.
At a level, obviously, that's not too terrifying for them, but they're living it too, so they've got to understand why they can't do these things. It's not just because I said so, because after a while, because I said so doesn't work. They still want to know why.
Yeah. And and it's important to note too, is like you said, talking to the kids on their level. So your kids, range from 13, 8, how old's your oldest?
So 17 to 5.
To 5, yeah. So you're going to talk to the 17-year-old and the 5-year-old very differently.
Oh yeah.
And mine are 7 and 10. So they can they're kind of on the same, understanding of it. But yeah, there's lots of, no, you don't understand. Can't we just go out to lunch today? No, we can't go out to lunch today. Why not? Everything's closed, so.
Right.
And talking to them on their level, so it doesn't start to feed any kind of maybe anxiety or nervousness that they may already have.
Yeah.
My 10-year-old has anxiety. It has its moments,
Yeah, and it can be severe, I'm sure. Yeah.
It absolutely can get there. And talking her through some things right now without making it sound so scary, no matter what we're feeling. Making it sound so scary can be a challenge. So how do you talk to a younger special needs child?
Yeah. So, and with special needs, obviously different special needs. There's different, emotional age versus physical age. So, even between our 13 and our 12-year-old, there is a huge difference on what they can comprehend. Our 13-year-old is very advanced. Our 12-year-old a little bit behind emotionally. And so learning to talk to them about things like right now, I didn't think to tell her about, like candy, for example. I really didn't think to explain to her why candy would be gone because honestly, I didn't think candy would be gone. I went to go get some tea tree oil to make some hand sanitizer just in case for my husband. And I was like, hey, you know what? But I'll get you guys a treat while we're at the store. Let me know the couple things you might want, and I'll see what I can find. And when I got there, there was nothing on her list. And so I had to like wing it and come up with something I knew that she normally liked. When I get home and, she's screaming at me because I don't have it. And why don't we have it? And it wasn't really the candy. I mean, yeah, she definitely still wanted the candy. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
it was the whole not understanding, well, why is candy missing? That doesn't make sense. I hear about toilet paper. Why is candy missing? And it's, I've explained, it's like, well, they're trying to get stuff in stock. They're trying to prioritize things. People are grabbing the things that make them comfortable, which is candy sometimes or chips or whatever. And having to sit down and explain that, right now people don't know what's going to happen and they're worried. And sometimes when we are worried, even as adults, we don't make the best decisions. And so explaining things at that level as opposed to necessarily, hey, there's this crazy global pandemic going on that's deadly in certain situations. Yeah, that's not a thing to say to her right now, because then none of us would ever sleep.
Right.
Because her anxiety would be through the roof and it would be awful for all of us, including her. So, it's obviously just knowing your child, where they're at and what they can handle, but also not discounting it too much either, because they're living this. They're going to grow up, and behind or not, we all grow up. We still get older. We all become adults, and they're going to remember back to this time. They're going to be talking to their kids and grandkids about the 20s and when we had this pandemic and toilet paper was gone. And, like they're going to have these conversations. And so learning to talk to them at their level, but then talking to them maybe a little tiny bit above to give them that credit to learn, but making sure to being open to having questions asked and saying, do you have concerns? Do you have worries? Do you understand what we're talking about? And what do you mean by you understand? Because kids will tell us they understand and they don't always understand.
Yeah. And I love that. I love asking them the questions, letting them kind of guide the conversation so that you do know how to talk to them about it. Because we can just say, well, there's ABC, but it doesn't connect because they're a child. And so letting them guide it, asking as many questions as possible about what does that mean you understand? Like, and and then letting them guide it. Are you kind of letting them guide in terms of like the daily routine, like you said, the routine? Are you letting them kind of, or are you setting?
Yes, we do. Well, it's kind of a combination. So there's certain things, because obviously teachers are sending work. For us, that's non-negotiable. I know certain schools, it is negotiable. Even ours, it's not. For the younger grades, it's not a set you have to. The older ones, it's like, here's the work. But for our household, it's like, no, we're going to keep going because I don't want you falling behind any more than you're going to, like, that everybody's going to fall behind. Also, it's structure. It gives them something to do. And it's something that they can do to give me some time to breathe. Because if it's something that the teacher knows that they can handle at their level, they can sit there with minimal questions. Older siblings can help too, which is nice. And so it gives me a chance to breathe. So there are certain things that are non-negotiable, like schoolwork. Bedtime is non-negotiable because as adults, we need that time.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all learning a new norm. And so we need time to kind of breathe and relax and go get a bubble bath or watch a movie or whatever, spend time with their spouses during this time. So like those are non-negotiable. But the other stuff, we do kind of let them help dictate the schedule, or if they've noticed something isn't working and they say, hey, I'm really struggling doing schoolwork at this time. Can we move it an hour later? Or, those things, we kind of let them help us figure it out as well.
Yeah. And so what are your tips for parents for kind of navigating through or staying calm and sane through the chaos? If like you have a child at home with some kind of, like mine has anxiety and yours have autism and some kind of special needs, and they're doing the homework, but it's just not computing and we don't know how to teach it. And it starts to go there.
Yeah, before it gets too much.
Yeah, before the volcano explodes. What are the?
Yeah. And the bigger thing for both of us, child and parent,
Mhm.
it's okay to take a break. It's okay to not get the work done. We're not in a situation now where, we say it's not negotiable in our house, but that doesn't mean that everything of that day's schedule has to be done either. It means we sit down to try to do schoolwork during that time. If they're not getting it, I mean, we had a situation where she was given a book club to do for the younger grades. And there's guided questions. They're like, oh, it gives a schedule of like Monday through Friday, listen to 1 through 3, this audiobook. Well, she couldn't stand the audiobook because she said and it was just a guy very much enunciating, which was great, I think, from a reading perspective. But for her, it was robotic.
Oh.
And then the text is at her grade level, which might not necessarily be at her emotional level when read at that, in that concept.
Yeah.
So then we're like, okay, well, let's try. We're going to go on Hoopla and we're going to, we're going to download the book and let you read it for yourself. And she's okay. I don't get it. After I hear screaming like 30 minutes later, like, I don't get it. I just don't understand what they're saying. And okay, you know what? We'll try this tomorrow. We'll try this again. And it came down to us figuring out I needed to read it to her. And when she didn't understand things, she'd stop me and say, okay, well, what does that word mean?
Yeah.
Or what is that context, or whatever the case may be. And so we've learned to kind of go with the flow. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, also, you don't have to have an 8-hour schedule. Routine doesn't necessarily mean you have to do this at 9, this at 9:15, this at 10:30. It doesn't have to be exact. We're not in school. None of us are going anywhere. Right. So, I mean, it's not a have to. The other thing is Google is a really good friend when it comes to helping, because middle school math is not cool. That is not what we did in middle school.
No.
It is way above what we did. High school, I'm not even trying. My 17-year-old most of the time will not ask me math questions. I'm like, yeah, no, I have no clue. You need to call an uncle or somebody right now because I don't know. So yeah, use your resources, if you've got, somebody else that knows, just because we're isolated to some degree doesn't mean we're actually isolated. We can call somebody, whether it's Skype, it's a phone call, it's an email, somebody that can talk to your child while you take a breather is always a good thing. And if they have a friend to call, you know what? Let them call a friend while you take 5-10 minutes to yourself too. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have a big yard, all you have is a balcony, go sit on the balcony, get some fresh air, breathe, or go hide in the bathroom for 20 minutes. That works too, But yeah, just taking those few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that. Just give yourself permission to take a break. It's okay if it doesn't get done right now, because we're not the teachers.
Yeah.
We're not the teachers. And so unless you've chosen to homeschool, we're not the teachers. And most of us got 3 hours notice. We were homeschooling for a month. So,
right.
For a month and potential, we don't know if it's going to last or not at this point. So it can be very overwhelming. So allowing everyone to just take a time out, take a break, and come back to it later, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're in a business, hey, let's table this and we'll circle back later.
Right, exactly.
Be that person, let's circle back to this in a couple hours or tomorrow. Oh, yeah. That's all great. That's all great advice. Is there anything that you find that you're doing? Like, I love how you went, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And then you found a solution that worked for your daughter with is there anything that you find yourself doing that's maybe surprising you? That's like, oh, I didn't think I'd be here, but I'm here.
So I'd say, and a lot of parents are finding this, and I've honestly taken a cue from blog posts from Italy right now, is that, yes, doctors say 1 to 2 hours, especially if you have special needs children, of digital time in general, screen time. Right now, it's not the time to enforce that.
Right.
I mean, it's really not. I have a couple friends who've said, their spouses are still trying to enforce that. And I'm like, I know it's hard. I'm the first person to advocate, minimal screen time. But right now, that is their only access to the outside world. It's not time to worry about it. I mean, obviously, we have times where I've noticed my children get angry if they've been on it too long.
Yeah.
When we notice that, it's, okay, we've got to take a break. We've got to take a breather. But actually, I don't enforce the screen time rules right now the way I did, which is something I'm not a big person of, like, that normally like, oh yeah, go be on the computer all you want or your phone. But yeah, it's their one time to talk to friends or play a video game, because honestly, what else are they going to do? They can't really go out and do the activities they were going to do. I mean, we had horse therapy that right now is, postponed for the foreseeable future because, that's it. Well, that was a big activity each week.
Yeah.
Go out and ride the horses and pet the horses and talk to other kids there. You talk about recess for the younger kids. So they had all this time with friends, and right now they're not getting it. And so it's like, you know what? Just let them be, as long as they are being safe, and as long as it's not affecting their actual mood levels in a negative way, let them have extra screen time.
Yeah. I mean, and that is a good point, is their connection. If they're, like we have the Messenger Kids app, so you control it and all of that. And they're just basically having a play date with a friend.
Yeah.
Just virtually. You're right. It is their connection right now and how they're able to connect. But also, if you're a parent that's working from home and you're not used to doing that, or like me, I work from home every day, but I get to work and focus when they're at school.
Yeah. That's the one time you had to focus
24 hours a day. And I tried working at 2 a.m.
Not to work.
Did not.
Right. You can't focus at 2 a.m.
Disaster the next day. So, sometimes it's like, have that for an hour so I can focus and bust through my stuff. I need them quiet and not arguing too, right? So this is survival right now. Is just parents, we have to kind of let go. I think what we're talking about is let go of some of the expectations, let go of the fear of being judged and the I don't want to say lower your expectations, but
to a degree, yeah. But I think we're all realizing how high our expectations are of ourselves, especially not just our kids, but of what all we're expecting ourselves to do in general, a day-to-day life, and why we're always so tired. And we're trying to do that now while balancing the kids 24/7, as if it's summer or if it's, a normal break, but it's extended. And I think we're all realizing that.
They still have to do school in summer, unless you put them in summer school, but then again, they're going there for that, right?
Right, exactly. You get a break, or you're planning play dates to where they're going with somebody else.
Or they're, like you said, having play dates with friends and stuff. So this is survival mode. There is no go outside the house and spend time with other people and learn things. It's all on you. So when you're trying to work from home, give 100% there. You're trying to give 100% to your kids, trying to 100% homeschool, trying to 100% be all in with your spouse, trying to cook healthy meals, trying to find ways to exercise, trying to keep everyone from fighting. You can't give 100% here.
Right. Exactly.
So we have to be able to just let some things go and give 100% in small pockets to one thing, and then set that aside. And we can give a small pocket here of 100% to this thing and set that aside. And then we can do this thing, and we can, and maybe come back to the thing we were doing before. And, but we can't give 100% in all different areas all at the same time.
Yeah.
That's when we burn out. So this has been so great. So what is one action step that you would say is super important for people to put into effect right now that we can do immediately to help our sanity as we navigate through this?
So right now, routine. Yeah, routine's going to be the big thing, no matter what your routine is. The biggest part of that routine, I would say, especially for parents' sanity, is bedtime. Determining what the current bedtime is going to be, what the current wake up time is going to be, so that you have those few minutes to yourself and with your spouse to kind of reset. Like Walmart's shutting down, they're closed at 8:30 and not opening till like 9:10. They need time to restock. Well, we need time to restock ourselves as well. And so coming up with that routine, that structure for yourself, and just knowing, hey, that's when the kids go to bed, so that we can have our sanity as well.
Yeah. And I agree, the bedtime routine, if we can keep it as consistent as possible, because we got to think in hopes that schools are going to go back in a month.
Right.
So getting them back. Like, I know my kids are big. Oh, can't we just stay up late? Let's watch one more TV show or whatever. And it's like, no, it's 8:30. I'm trying to stick to that bedtime routine as much as possible, because when you do go back to school, I don't want it to be, oh my God, you haven't been going to bed till 10:30, 11 o'clock. And now 8:30, I'm saying bedtime. They're like, nope.
Yeah, and when we get the warning that they go back to school, it's probably going to be within a day or so, or maybe a weekend at most. It's going to be like, hey, great, schools are back in session, come back this day, and that's all we're going to know. So it's going to be very sudden when it happens.
Just like it was to end school. It was very sudden.
Exactly.
Yeah, decisions are being made spur of the moment because information is constantly coming in. So again, in terms of rolling with the punches, routine helps us to be able to, it's interesting to say routine helps us to be able to be flexible.
Exactly.
It does. Routine helps us to be able to reroute and be flexible and still keep some kind of structure in place. And the bedtime helps, the wake up time and getting enough sleep helps everyone to be not fighting all day long. And which I know is the big thing in this house. So
same here. We've got 4, and just because there's age differences does not mean they don't argue. A 17 and 5-year-old will argue at times.
Goodness, you can imagine. 17-year-olds like, just out of my way.
Right, like I'm done with you. Yeah.
With my pinky. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation, and thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. Tell me again, how do people get a hold of you if they want to know more? And
yeah, so it's themomkind.com is the website, and pretty much all social media is at themomkind. And yeah, just come find us and spark a conversation.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thank you for having me. Yes, absolutely.